And I'm afraid I do have slides, like every good professor has learned to do. So if they can be sent, I would appreciate it. So thank you very much, Barbara, for inviting. Thank you, everybody. I will try to, of course not, I will certainly stay in the time set that was given, so by 5 o'clock we shall be finished, provided my slides are launched sometime at a certain point. So just a few things about the Michelangelo Foundation for Creativity and Craftsmanship. It's a private, non-for-profit foundation which was created 3 years ago in Geneva, in Switzerland, thanks to the intuition of two businessmen. The South African tycoon Johan Rupert, among other things, chairman and majority shareholder of the Richemont Group, and Franco Cologni, an Italian businessman and entrepreneur that for many years has been chairman of Cartier International and was responsible for all the brands of jewelry and watchmaking of the Richemont Group. So the two gentlemen decided to join forces to create this foundation to promote and protect all the things that human hands can do and will always be able to do better than any machine. Here they are. So I extracted 2 quotes out of the many interviews that they did. Because why these 2 successful men at a certain point decided to dedicate their substances, their time, their resources to promoting fine craftsmanship. Mr. Cologni said, I'm sure that the time is ripe now for the emergence of an artisan humanism everywhere. And this foundation will bring key actors together to create a network, stimulate, and sustain this movement. Well, Mr. Rupert declared, we are living on the cusp of tremendous systemic change. And while many things may be in flux, one thing is clear. It's time to give back and to put the human being back at the center of our system. To put the human being at the center of our system means for us to be able to give value and visibility to all the things that, as I was saying in the beginning, the human hands can do and will always be able to do better than any machine. And in order to give visibility and to give a first presentation of the values we believe in, as Barbara was anticipating, we created last year an exhibition called Homo Faber, Crafting a More Human Future. We had it in the beautiful premises of the Giorgio Cini Foundation on the San Giorgio Island in Venice, and it was an exhibition made of 16 different exhibitions, each of which was dedicated to one specific theme connected to craftsmanship, so interior decoration, fashion, luxury, design, and so on and so forth. And for every room there were specific curators that we selected and that joined forces with us. So Judith Clark was a curator of the part dedicated to fashion. India Madhavi took care of interior decoration, Michele De Lucchi of design, and so on. So when we presented this exhibition, actually, how many people were we expecting to have? But I said to myself as general curator, well, we are in Venice, we are on an island outside of Venice, you have to take the Vaporetto, which is expensive. Venice is full of beautiful things. This is an exhibition about craft. Who cares about that? So I said, well, if we have 20,000 visitors in 17 days, I'm going to make a quadro al divino amore. I'm going to, I'm going to be very happy. We had almost 70,000. But on top of the numbers, what was important was that this exhibition really helped us changing our mind, and we do hope that also many of the people that came could take the Vaporetto to go back home having learned something more and something different about this theme. Because in the beginning, me and my co-director, Fabienne Lupo, we were regarded as the high priest and high priestess of a time gone by. The time of the crafts, a time where actually so out of the market, so out of the contemporary times, something too connected to tradition to survive. And this has posed us a question. What do we mean as tradition? Are we really trying to safeguard something which is condemned to vanish and to fade out quickly? So we ask ourselves a question. What is tradition? And in order to make you understand the link that came up to our mind, I chose this painting by Paul Klee, the Swiss painter. This is called Angelus Novus. In Latin, novus doesn't mean new. It means the last. This is the last angel. Where is he looking at with his eyes? And what is behind his wings that almost look like human hands? What is tradition? What is heritage? Is heritage just a burden and a huge mass which is turned into ashes behind our shoulders? The ruins of an old continent like Europe that has nothing more to say? Is tradition just a burden that forbids us to fly away, that forbids to the last angel to take the sky and go? Or is tradition an incredible propeller and a sparkle that will permit to the angel to fly higher than anybody else, much higher than all of those who have no idea how to ignite this incredible propeller, which can be tradition? And this made us think about another exhibition which took place in 1970 in Osaka. And it was a World Expo, about which we have also spoken before. In 1970 in Osaka, during this World Expo, they made an experiment. They took two boxes. In one box, they put a number of objects of traditional Japanese craft. So they put in a silk kimono, a lacquered wooden box, a ceramic bowl, a porcelain, a brush for calligraphy, all things connected to Japanese tradition. They put all of these objects into the box and they buried it underground. In another box, they put all the best examples of all the most incredible and disruptive things that technology had allowed to create. They put all of these objects in a box and put it underground. So let's imagine to open these two boxes now, 50 years later. In one box, we would find this. Perfectly readable, understandable, and maybe inspiring now, as they were 50 years ago. In the other box, we would find this. By this, I don't mean that all of these objects are immediately meaningless. They are not. They have been pivotal to allow us to get where we are nowadays. But where does our focus go when we analyze the value of what we've grown up with and the value of what we are using to evolve? Where is the limit when something is worn out and has to be disposed of, and when something becomes meaningful for us and becomes the milestone to allow our tradition to be really ignited and to become a comparative advantage that we have and that other people do not have? I will borrow the words from Igor Stravinsky to help me explaining this. A true tradition, wrote the musician, is not the witness of a remote past. It is a living force that enlivens and nourishes the present. Far from a mere repetition of what has gone before, a tradition is an ongoing reality. It can be considered a family property, a heritage one receives on the condition that it must be allowed to fructify before its transmission to the future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give words their meaning. If a heritage is not fruitful, it's not a heritage. Period. Give it another name. It can be an inheritance, it can be a check that you put in your pocket, it can be whatever you call it. But when we talk about true heritage, we are talking about something that allows you to become fertile, generative, to fructify. Otherwise, I apologize, it's not what we call heritage and what underpins the system of luxury. Needless to say, all of the pieces that we worship now as legendary were contemporary at a certain moment. But in order to build this heritage, in order once again to understand where is the limit, where is the line that divides what can be disposed of and what has to be kept, we have to understand that a heritage is composed of a number of elements, including a certain way of looking at changing things, at innovating, at protecting. If we consider brocade as it's still hand-woven in Venice, for instance, by Bevilacqua. I mean, what can be more traditional than that? But hey, we still have it now because in the 15th century, this way of weaving, these drawings, this design have been patented. In Italy, we invented the patents. In Venice in 1474. And the first patents were connected exactly to what we're talking about now in these 2 days. Fashion and embellishment of clothing and making beautiful things to feel more beautiful, more self-confident, more sexy, whatever you want. Heritage is not just to take out something from a closet and say, oh, it looks beautiful. No, it does not. It looks boring if you don't understand the value of it and where it comes from. And if there hadn't been this innovative and disruptive way of looking at something and say, hey, we have to patent it. And if you deposit the way you make it so that even if you pass away, your secret will not be lost, I will protect this for you. This was invented in 1474. Sometimes, you know, what you see is important, but what you don't see is just as much important. If you go to Florence, to the Uffizi, you will see this beautiful painting. It's Eleonora di Toledo. She was a duchess, a noble woman of Spanish origin, and the bride of Cosimo, Duke of Medicis. If we look at the painting, here she is with her son Giovanni, who would later become Cardinal Medici. If we look at this painting, we can just, you know, have a look and say, wow, she looks splendid. But this painting conveys a number of political messages that were extremely instrumental to the Medici court to affirm its own legitimacy on the throne of Florence. First of all, the beautiful design of the dress, which makes us understand that in Florence they had incredibly talented designers. If we think about the artists of the Renaissance, they were not only sculptors, painters, or architects. More or less, they were what we could call nowadays art directors, creative directors. Leonardo da Vinci used to create fireworks for the Duke of Milan. So, in order to create a design like this, a pattern like this, you must have had in Florence the most skillful and talented artists and designers. This is a very complex fabric. It's a brocade, a silk brocade that requires extremely skillful artisans to create it, and they can create no more than 5 centimeters per day. So you look at it and say, wow, in Florence they had great artists and great artisans, because not everywhere in Europe you could find artisans able to create this level of finesse in creating something. And the Italian cities were fighting with one another to attract the best talents. Hey, this is our story. It's not a story of telling people, go away and go home. Our story is, hey, do you have a talent? Do you have a story? Please come. This is the story of the Italian Renaissance that allowed us to achieve these levels. On top of this is a silk brocade. Silk, the best silk always came from China. Imported by whom? By the merchants that had the eye to go everywhere in the world and scout for the best raw materials to bring it back to their hometown, Florence, so that it could be transformed into something incredible. In Italy, do we have gold mines? Do we have diamond mines? We have nothing, but we have this. We are able to transform things in the best possible way. This is one of the talents that we have, and that we have to showcase to the world in order to understand also what heritage means. With which money did the merchants go and buy this precious silk? With the money lent by the bankers. Even the Medici were a family of bankers. If you go to London, there is a street called Lombard Street, which is dedicated to the bankers of Lombardy, which had letter of credits to finance the credit. Bankers who believed in the power of beauty and in the power of luxury, and that used to give money to the merchants so that they could buy the most beautiful things. So, when we look at something like this, we understand that heritage is a system. S-Y-S-T-E-M. Merchants, bankers, artisans, designers, and needless to say, The client, because if you have nobody to buy what you do, there's something which is missing. So everybody can go to the Uffizi and look at this and feel delighted. But are we still educated in understanding that even a painting like this talks about who we are nowadays and what we need nowadays in order to transform a heritage into something precious and meaningful? What you see, as I was saying, is very important. But sometimes what you don't see is essential. It's a little like bikini, if you want, or like a corset. It shows many beautiful things, but it hides the essential. When Cindy Crawford graced the Dolce & Gabbana catwalk for the Spring-Summer 1992 collections wearing this black corset, this has been an extremely disruptive choice if you think about what you used to see on the catwalks and in the early 90s. And the message is that you don't have to exhibit nudity in order to be sensual. You don't have to be banal to make yourself be understood. You don't have to showcase everything in order to allow people to imagine and to dream. You have to showcase something beautiful that presents the truth and at the same time evokes the possibility to dream. But do we still have the culture to look at something and grasp the meaning behind it? If you go to Melbourne or Brisbane, sorry, but I can't remember now, in the Art Museum, you will find this painting by Giovanni Battista Tiepolo, a Venetian painter, that represents the banquet of Cleopatra. Who was Cleopatra? She was queen of Egypt when the Romans decided to conquer Egypt. So first Julius Caesar and then Mark Antony, 40 years before Jesus Christ, more or less, they went down to Egypt to conquer it. So the Roman armies, the Roman legions defeated the Egyptian army, and the queen was forced to give up her sovereignty. The Roman general who was sent there to take control of Egypt was Mark Antony. And, as I think you know, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, they fell in love with one another. So they started a love affair. If you have seen the movie Cleopatra with Richard Barton and Liz Taylor, which was turned here in Cinecittà, I think you remember that their love story was a bit, sparkling, vivacious. They were constantly fighting. Why were they constantly fighting? Because Cleopatra simply couldn't accept the fact that such a rude, smelly soldier had come to Egypt to dominate over her. She was saying, but I'm the queen of Egypt. This is a cradle of civilization. We invented everything, and you are a smelly, dirty soldier coming from Rome. And you come here and you want to dictate me what I have to do? Hey. So they made a kind of a bet. So Cleopatra told him, you know what? I'm going to show you that I can spend 1 million golden coins for just one banquet. 1 million golden coins for just one banquet. If Mark Antony had been Milanese, he would have said, oh la Madonna. But he was Roman, so he might have said sti cazzi, I don't know, but anyway. So he accepted the bet. And Tiepolo represents the moment into, nowadays we would call it the reveal, so the moment when something happens. So you see on the table, Cleopatra is wearing this beautiful Ermisino dress, typical of the courtesans of the 18th century. Mark Antony is looking at her in a kind of a puzzled way, saying, hey, what she's up to now? And actually, on the table, there's basically nothing. So how can she consume 1 million golden coins? So the legend, the history goes that Cleopatra calls a waiter. The waiter brings in a goblet, a glass full of vinegar. Then Cleopatra removes from her ear a beautiful earring that she was wearing, made of one perfect, beautiful pearl. She drops the pearl into the vinegar. The pearl is organic, so the vinegar melts it. And Cleopatra drinks the vinegar with the pearl inside. The value of the pearl was 1 million golden coins. Why am I telling you this story? Because the most important thing in this painting is exactly the one that nobody sees. The pearl. If you notice the pearl and you understand what this painting is about, this painting is no more only beautiful, it becomes meaningful. And meaning always adds value to beauty. Otherwise, you arrive in Brisbane or in Melbourne or wherever it is, you arrive in front of it and you say, bello. And you go to see something else, and nothing remains inside of you. Because you can also be lost in beauty, you know? Sometimes beauty is simply something that you take for granted, that leaves nothing, no traces, no value, no heritage, once again. If you go to Spoleto and you take the stairs to go down to visit the Duomo, if you are at the top stair of the staircase that goes down and you look at the cathedral, only, I think, 1% of the hundreds of thousands of tourists that go to Spoleto every year notice that the unknown architect that had designed those staircases 600 years ago had designed them so that when you're up and you look at the cathedral, the top of the hill coincides with the top of the facade. For just one single moment, your eyes behold something that was designed, we don't know by whom, but if you understand it, don't you feel touched? Don't you feel that something has been revealed just for you? The fact of understanding, does not it add to the notion of beauty? Or do we have to consider that beauty is just in the shape, in the external side of what we see? But everybody can have a look at this. But only those who have this moment of understanding can remember this forever and feel themselves enriched by what they see. Looking at something just from a superficial point of view makes all that we do useless, ladies and gentlemen, because it's what is beautiful today will be ugly tomorrow and will be disposed of. Stat rosa pristina nomine, nomina nuda tenemus. The rose of yesterday only exists in the name. It's faded. So, if I tell Judith, oh Judy, you know you did a splendid job last year at Homo Faber. I have bought for you a 255 bag from Chanel. Wow, I think, you know, Judith would be happy, I hope. So, because the 255 bag is it's a beautiful bag. It was created in the month of February of 1955. And you know, Chanel was quick. Which month it is? February 2. Which year is this? 55, 255. E bon, basta. It still pays a lot of salaries, I think, in the Chanel group, because it's still a bestseller. Every year it is reinvented. You can wear it with your evening gown. You can wear it with jeans. It's a beautiful bag. Then, you know, this beautiful lady here in second row can tell me, oh, but I only wear Alaya. Okay, fine. I'm very happy that you like Alaya bags. But all in all, the 255, is it a beautiful bag? Yes, it is. But the photo that I've chosen to illustrate to you this has nothing to do with Chanel. This is a fake bag. This bag has been crafted by a 9-year-old boy who works for 14 hours a day in a dungeon without even seeing a ray of light, where, we don't know, maybe in Osmannoro, maybe in Milan, maybe in London, we don't know where it is. But the fact is that behind the object that we see, there is a horror story. So if I ask you again, is this bag beautiful? What would your reply be? 30 seconds ago, it was beautiful. Now, I really don't think that knowing that this comes from a horror story, you can say, yes, it's beautiful. Because beauty, to be authentic, must have a sense. And it's not Alberto Cavalli that tells you this. It's one of the most important contemporary philosophers, François Cheng, of the Sorbonne University in Paris. He said beauty, to be authentic, must have a sense. Sense requires a sensation. You have to see it, you have to feel it, you have to touch it, you have to watch it. The Psalms in the Bible say, gustate et videte, quia bonus est Dominus. Gustate, taste and see how good is the Lord. A sense as a meaning. The more you know, the more you love. How can you fall in love with someone you don't even know? and beauty as a direction. I have chosen the famous Hollywood actress Lana Turner to represent this. Lana Turner, she was one of the most beautiful women of her time, and here she is represented as Milady de Winter in the silk screen adaptation of The Three Musketeers. I think there are no villains in the history of literature more villain than Milady de Winter. She's a bitch at page 1, and she's a bitch at page 800 when she dies. Or maybe Cersei Lannister, but anyway. Was Milady de Winter a beautiful woman? Of course she was. Was her beauty authentic? Her beauty went in the wrong direction. She used her beauty to serve evil. Can we consider this as an attribute of authenticity? Francois Cheng invites us to think back. We live in moments where we really have to consider the value of heritage as something alive, as something connected to who we are. Otherwise, this is where we go. We run the risk that the prophecies of the three witches of the Macbeth come true. In the first act of the Macbeth, Banquo and Macbeth are wandering in the mall. When they see the three witches, the three creatures from hell, what are these three witches saying? Fair is foul, foul is fair. Fair is foul, foul is fair. Il bello è brutto, il brutto è bello. We live in a moment when this risk is very much present, that everything that should be considered beautiful, because it's part of an identity, it's part of a respectful way of approaching, making, thinking, doing, presenting, is all of a sudden meaningless, because it's not pop. And everything which, on the contrary, is totally void of any value, becomes beautiful, because it's popular, because it's easy, because it has already been chewed up and given to you, and you don't even have to make the effort of chewing it yourself. But this is disgusting, let me tell you. This is more than foul. This is disgusting, because it's not our story. It's not what we believe in. Soetsu Yanagi, who is, I would say, the Japanese correspondent of William Morris, wrote that objects created without beauty generate poverty, because even if they are more numerous, they create more dissatisfaction and more unhappiness. We live in a moment of plenty, but has this plenty corresponded to happiness and beauty and love? No, because this plenty didn't correspond to a fulfillment in terms of meaning, in terms of beauty, in terms of satisfaction with what we do, with what you do, which is something that you learn from the craftsman. From craftsmen like Pino Grasso, the famous Milanese embroiderer, who is 88, and every day he goes to his atelier with his daughter Raffaella to enjoy still what he does for everybody. He's a real interpreter, because when he receives phone calls from Dolce & Gabbana, Prada, Valentino, Armani, he works with everybody. The hands are always the same, but the results that you see reflect the identity of the designer. This is a master craftsman. It's not an executive, it's not an insect. It's an interpreter. Someone who has the culture and the values to understand what you're doing and to give back more than what you're giving them. These are the people that we like working with and that we want to protect, because we do believe they have something to say to the young generations of today. Be happy with what you do, because the real welfare is not your retirement fund. Is giving a meaning to every single day of your life. The value of a heritage is also connected to the territory. In each territory, there is a genius loci, a spirit of the place, which imbues what you're doing. Made in France, made in Italy, are they just labels? Or do they reflect the culture of the making in that place? When Yves Saint Laurent created a line of ready-to-wear, how did he call it? Yves Saint Laurent, Rive Gauche. Now, for heaven's sake, what is Rive Gauche? You know that Paris is divided into two by the Seine River. So there is la Rive Droite, the right bank, with Place Vendôme, Avenue Montaigne, the ministries, the important palaces, the Louvre. And then you have the left bank, la Rive Gauche, where you have the Faculty of Political Sciences, the Academy of Fine Arts, the Café des Flores, where the philosophers used to go to smoke a cigarette and talk about life, and someone else will pay the bill. Rive Gauche, you buy a piece of clothing, and you don't just buy the made in France, you don't just buy the made in Paris, you buy a lifestyle, you buy the Rive Gauche. The territory contributes enormously to the value of a heritage, which is the world's most important car manufacturer. It's Toyota, and which is the world's capital of automotive. It's Detroit. But would you buy a Ferrari made by Toyota? Would you buy a Ferrari made in Detroit? When it comes to these incredibly meaningful and beautiful objects, their heritage, it's not just connected to a repetition in the making, as Stravinsky put it, but their heritage is connected of something alive, connected to the culture, to the vision, to the innovative consideration that lie behind the fact that a car can be still made in Maranello and become one of the most coveted objects in the world. The mission of our foundation is also to create and to train a new generation of master craftsmen. Why is it so important to organize moments like this and to present to the young generations the value of a heritage to underpin the world of luxury? Because as President Abraham Lincoln used to say, if you think that education is expensive, try ignorance. Try ignorance. Which is the real enemy of heritage? Which is the real enemy of fine craftsmanship? Do you think it's technology? No, the real enemy is ignorance. Because if you don't know, you are living somebody else's life. If you don't know, you don't see, you don't understand, you don't feel, you don't create. You just consume. Ignorance is destroying your jobs and is taking out meaning from what we do. Competence, the competence that we see every day in the work of the master craftsman, always makes the difference. And when we give up on that, we are giving up on our own very being human. Like the Pollaiuolo represented here in the Metamorphosis of Daphne. Apollon wanted to have a love affair with Daphne. Daphne was not in agreement, so she prayed to be transformed into a tree. And she was transformed into a laurel tree. The Pollaiuolo, where do they start? From the head? From the feet? No, they start from the hands. The moment when we lose our hands, we're no more humans. And we are no more able to convey all of those values. This is at the basis of what we mean as heritage. The Renaissance idea of the splendor. Splendor is at the basis of design, of craftsmanship, of luxury. Splendor is not simply beauty, is not luxury, it's something that shines and that reveals something incredibly meaningful for you that own it, and for everybody else that will watch it and that will fulfill it, even if they don't possess it, but never mind, they will still feel it's part of who they are. Heritage as a value is a complicated concept made up of a number of elements: authenticity, competence, craftsmanship, creativity. Of course, we didn't have the time today to go through all of them. But when we talk about heritage, really we have to forget the fact that it's something locked up in a closet that can be taken out, refreshed, and hey, it's fabulous. No, it's not. It's useless. Like the treasures that Pharaoh Tutankhamun had in his tomb. He was entombed with magnificent jewels and gold, but he was dead. I conclude by saying that please don't give for granted that all of the things that we believe in will last forever, that all the beauty that surrounds us, that all the beautiful pieces that you see in the exhibitions curated by the expert that we had here before will last forever. We take them for granted and we say, oh yes, but there will always be someone doing that. No. No. We take for granted that beauty will last forever, but if we don't give value to this, it will not. It will not because it will be meaningless. It will be non-relevant. And this is why, even from the world of luxury and the world of fashion, we have always to underline the value of what we call heritage as a complex and constantly changing allure. Did Dostoevsky really write that beauty will change the world? No. In his novel, The Idiot, this is a question. Ну скажите, если вы сказал, что мир спасет красота. No, tell us, did you really say that beauty will change the world? It's a question. Will beauty save the world? Or does the world have to save beauty through meaning and value? So I can understand that many of you as young generations, sometimes, you look at the state that the world is now and you say to yourself, should I stay or should I go? Maybe you're not so well equipped as Marlene, but anyway, this is a question. Should I stay in this country? Should I migrate? Where do I go? Where can I be accepted? What I believe in, like all my commitments, all the things that I believe in seem to be so outdated, seem to be so outworn, seem to be so indifferent to anybody else. Well, I give you my piece of advice, even if you don't ask for it. But when you feel that all of the values you believe in are becoming outworn, think about this painting, The Christ Resurrected by Piero della Francesca in San Sepolcro. Christ is resurrecting from the tomb, the most disruptive action ever told in history. And what are human beings doing? Sleeping. This is even putting hands on his eyes, say, ma son solo cazzi qui. I don't want to see anything. This is sleeping. This is looking, but without really watching. So something incredible is happening and nobody seems to care. Yes, but don't focus on the part that nobody seems to care. Focus on the part that something extraordinary is happening. And you are the protagonist of this something which is happening now. Sicut lilium inter spinas, ita amica mea inter filias, et sicut malum inter ligna silvarum, ita dilectus meus inter filios. This is the Song of Songs in the Bible. Like the lily among the brambles is my girl among the girls. And like the apple tree among the trees of the forest is my boy among the boys. There are so many trees in the forest. Hey, but then there is the apple tree. And under its perfumed flowers, I want to sit and rest. There are so many brambles and thorns. But hey, then there is the lily. What is different will make you fall in love. And this difference is what heritage, authenticity, and originality are all about. Thank you.